I realized what brings it back? Lifting heavy things. Do you know I started with just 10 minutes 3 times a week? Now I'm doing 30 minutes 3 times a week. That's it. And I have regained my muscle to a point that I've never had this much lean muscle mass in my life. My metabolism is burning.
Thanks for listening to the Healthy Parenting Handbook, just the thing we all said we needed when we first became parents. Remember that feeling? Oh, where's the handbook for this? I'm your host, Katie Kimball from Kids Cook Real Food, and on this podcast, I bring together experts in the fields of health, parenting, nutrition, and more to help you, parents, get the information you need to raise truly healthy, independent kids. Today, I'm so honored to host the founders of Trim Healthy Mama. Pearl Barrett and Serene Ellison have truly written the handbook for women as we move through our 30s into our 40s and beyond. Pearl and Serene are sisters. They're the authors of 3 best-selling books and creators of the Trim Healthy Mama phenomenon. They share a passion for healthy eating and, as you will hear, learning and research. They both have large families and love to experiment in the kitchen on the best ways to nourish those families while staying trim and healthy in the process. They are former Christian recording artists who traveled extensively for the record label, but relinquished their touring careers to embrace a life at home with children, dinner, dishes, and diapers. I know you know how that feels. They never looked back. And I know many of you will resonate with their spirit, with their energy. And I hope, because I'm a bit of a science geek, I hope that my audience is also full of science geeks. We are going to talk today about the changes, hormonally, structurally, physically, metabolically, that women go through as we enter the phase of life, leaving the childbearing years and going into those menopausal years. I'm telling you guys, this is fascinating. You can be walking while you listen, but you may need to re-listen to take notes or check out those skim notes because this is a good one. When you get through the podcast, if you're like, oh, I need my hands on a copy of Trim Healthy Wisdom, don't just get jealous that I have one. The brand new Trim Healthy Wisdom book came out in February 2025, so you can get a $5 discount on that book with the code Katie4THW. That's Katie, the number 4, THW for Trim Healthy Wisdom. And do that at my special link, kidscookrealfood.com/THW for Trim Healthy Wisdom. Honestly, guys, I don't know how long they're going to let me keep this coupon, but for sure, go to kidscookrealfood.com/THW and try it. See if it's still working. If not, you can still buy the book. It is a great piece of wisdom for you to have in your home. You can also check the show notes for any links we talk about, including that one, at kidscookrealfood.com/060. Oh, let's jump into this interview. One of my favorite after 200 interviews. Pearl and Serene, my goodness, thank you for being here. This is going to be a high energy podcast, ladies out there. So I hope that you are doing something where you can move and groove and listen to 3 fast talking women.
And sisters that talk over one another. So forgive us in advance.
Yeah, that's okay. It's mostly women listening. So I have to know, I mean, Trim Healthy Mama has been sort of a brand that I've heard about for many, many years. But what's your background? Like, how did you fall in love with this healthy eating and end up writing about food and health? Because you don't have all those letters after your name, but yet you talk like you do.
We're not experts. We're home perts. We're dorks, really. We were raised in a very healthy minded family. Our grandmother was very health conscious, and she had a myriad of health books on the shelf. And our favorite thing to do was not go to the mall with friends. We went to what they'd call the sanitariums, the health food stores, sit in the corner and research. What did we ask for Christmas, Pearl?
Yeah, health books.
Yes.
So we are just 2 nerds, and it was in our DNA, in our blood. Our mum was crunchy, our grandmother was crunchy, and
then we took it a step further.
Yeah.
And we really have a passion for research.
But really, reading all those books, and I'm sure many of your listeners and viewers relate, can get you into pits because there's a lot of conflicting information. So you can imagine from, young girls reading up until, and then having babies and being in different times of life and trying all these different diets, what kind of like the wisdom of man says you must do. And so we really tried everything, and we got ourselves into bits of pickles with our health for sure.
Major, until we were so broken. I was my health was so undone, and I was at the pinnacle of doing what the health gurus said to do. I was a total raw food plant eating, weirdo, and I'd kick the oven off of my deck. I had like dehydrators whirring, making bird seed pate burgers and all crazy stuff. But I was broken and I was so desperate. And I went to the Bible. I kind of peeled the Bible open with my nose, and I'm crying. I'm like, God, I've come to you for all of my spiritual, knowledge. You've got to have something practical in here for my health. And of course he does. And I opened to that verse in Deuteronomy that just kind of so poetically described all of the food groups. It was like, I give you the herb of the field, the blood of the grape, the harvest of the field. I give you the milk of the goat, the fat of the ram. It went through all of it. And I was like, light bulb moment. Everything we had done and following all the health gurus and all of the different camps in health, it was always exclusive, always excluding a gift that God gave. So the light bulb went on, and we're like, inclusivity. That's what we're going to be about, celebrating God's gifts of food,
but doing it wisely.
And that's one of your rules.
Yeah, exactly. We do not leave any food groups out. So that's our number one thing. But then we really got into some study and how do the macronutrients work in a body, especially a female body, because it's different from a male body. And so that's how this whole Trim Healthy Mama thing began. We found something that worked so well for being busy mamas and being parents. And then it just spread. We don't know how, but it just spread globally. And, we're sitting here today, 18 years later, and hundreds of thousands of families have been transformed.
We just loved being homeschooling mamas. We really had no ambition for business at all, but God just opened the door, and it worked better than we expected. We really did it in the beginning to find sustainable health that could support, raising children and feeding a happy husband and feeding ourselves, and kind of like just having a sense of control of our weight, where we were having like baby back in, but and just being able to control our waistline as a mama. But we did not know it would make women lose hundreds of pounds.
Yeah. So it's been an incredible ride. And now here we are with you.
And it's amazing to me that you could homeschool lots of children and do all this research. And it just shows that you have the passion for it, and you've got the brain wisdom to keep track of it all.
Yeah. And it also shows that none of our socks matched, and everything else went to the wayside. So that's what it really shows.
But I think it's not work when you love something. And some people have the gift of organization, or doing this or that. We don't necessarily have that, but we have the gift of a passion to research.
Mm-hmm. And it really shows in your newest book. It's called Trim Healthy Wisdom, and it is a massive 3-year project. It's a massive tome of about 1,000 pages, where you didn't even have room for the recipes. I saw that right. They didn't even fit. But this book, Trim Healthy Wisdom, is for women whose bodies and hormones are starting to change. So you read it in your 30s, got to use it as you enter into your 40s and up to help with metabolism, weight, vitality, hormones. Where did you get the inspiration for this book and digging into all this additional science?
Well, it came from our own needs.
Through our own desperation.
When you're a woman going through hormonal changes, everything changes because hormones rule everything.
Well, she actually went through, menopause. She was a hormone researcher before menopause, but she allowed herself to go through it. And boy, it was hell for her. It was absolutely hell. And she'll talk a little bit more about that. But I went through hormonal challenges where I just couldn't keep babies anymore. I had miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage. And I knew something was wrong. Something was not the same. And that's kind of like what catapulted both of our journeys of desperation is what kind of inspired all of that research.
Yeah, because I'm sure many, women relate that are listening today. You can even have such a great eating lifestyle. You can be eating the whole foods and the toxins are out, and you're doing the vegetables and the proteins and the healthy carbs. Yet if your really crucial, important hormones are leaving your body, albeit slowly, sometimes we don't even realize it, and it starts in our late 30s and early 40s, things change. The way we sleep, our metabolism,
how we respond to exercise, how we actually can digest food and burn it properly.
Yes.
Insulin resistance starts happening to us even on a healthy diet.
Mm-hmm. So all these things happen, and suddenly I'm like, hold on, I'm the head of this big, movement, this health movement. And here I am feeling undone. I'm not sleeping. My metabolism has changed. These foods before that were so wonderful for me, I can't even burn them anymore. I'm skinny fat. My muscle tone is gone despite basic exercise. And so this led us to just research, and we uncovered some fantastic things.
And the light of hope has turned on in our lives, and we want to share that with women, because before I felt like we were staring down a gangplank of like, oh, now, our golden years are gone and now it's just over the hill and we're going to get rustier and rustier. But I don't feel that way now. I've got so much excitement about the future. I just feel like my best years are yet to come as a woman, but also in my marriage. I just feel like so much excitement, and we want to together share this hope.
I want to wave that banner with you, because it's always frustrated me when people say, oh, when you hit 40, like you said, it's all downhill, everything changes. And I just really want to push against that. And I love that you're doing it with the facts. So let's science geek out and dig into some terms. When you've used the word metabolism already, so definition, please. What's a metabolism, and how can we work with it rather than against it?
I mean, broadly, the broad scope of it is metabolism is just kind of like how your body does all the processes that make you able to live in your body, keep going on. But, to the point, most people use the word metabolism when it comes to how our body efficiently processes or inefficiently processes food, can turn food into energy.
And most of us women find that our metabolism turns down, as we get older. And really, metabolism, one thing that we have found and one thing that we've discovered and that we will stake our names on is that muscle is involved with metabolism. And we women, we can, do all the right things and even stay the same weight sometimes as we were. Like, I want to stay at that weight when I was 29. Okay, I got here. I cut my calories. I did all this. Doesn't matter. The body is different. Lean muscle is usually gone and diminished quite significantly. And even though you might be the same weight, fat has gone up. And so
lean muscle has gone down. And then because of that, your metabolism is way slower.
It makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of us can probably feel or see that happening, where the number is the same, but the proportions shift a little. And you can feel the difference. So what are some mistakes women tend to make, ladies, as they try to care for their bodies during peri-menopause, etc.?
I think one of the biggest mistakes, and we've seen it in our groups, and we've been able to have a real front seat view of not just our experiences, but so many thousands of women, and just how at first I think the biggest mistake is going keto, then going low calorie with that keto, and then turning that into intermittent fasting. And so what we see is they get a little honeymoon period at first, and it's like, oh, this is great, my body's responding. But then their body, it gets into survival mode. The body realizes the stressor of it. And the leptin tanks, the body starts freaking out, turns on its survival mode, and the metabolism screeches to a halt. They lose lean body mass. They lose their muscle even faster than what they were already losing it, which again then puts trouble on top of trouble. And we feel like that's the greatest mistake. Instead of keeping their gentle carbs in and exercising a certain way which stimulates muscle turnover, they start worrying about the number on the scale. And to do that, they leave out their carbs and start lessening their food. They lower their calories and they end up intermittent fasting. But Pearl, you explain.
Well, also, the reason they do that is not just because they think I should, but their body starts to get desperate and they realize, well, hold on, my blood sugar's going up. My doctor told me my A1C is higher now. And so they're like, well, what's causing that? Carbs. And so, of course, they pull the carbs down. But why is that happening? And it's back to what we said earlier. What is the storehouse for blood sugar? It is our muscles. And when our muscles decline just through age and loss of hormones, well, there's nowhere for that to go. And so that's why
after 30, it happens after 30. Sarcopenia begins. And every year, the train gets faster and faster and faster. And then you get into your mid-40s, and then you've got into peri-menopause. It's a little bit earlier for some. And that muscle depletion, it's just, it becomes like a
freight train.
Not just a freight train, like one of those trains that go the speed trains in China.
The bullet trains.
Yeah, the bullet trains.
Yeah, so that's a big one. We see women do it all the time, and oftentimes they're being directed by their health physician because that's their physician's.
And without proper carbohydrates, you don't have the energy to really put it in with the right kind of exercise. And you need carbohydrates to, get the insulin to put the amino acids back into the muscles so that they can build and they can turn over. So without carbs, you will deplete.
But we're not talking carbs generally. Like, we're not talking the white pasta, and we're not talking the sugar. We're not talking about those. We are talking healthy carbs, like
sweet potatoes.
Yes.
Lentils.
Fruit.
Beans. Yeah. Even the waxy golden potatoes. We're not against potatoes at all.
Yeah.
But, some people can't handle the big russet bakers, depending on where they are.
Well, you've touched upon about 5 different things that I want to dive deeper into. Let's start with the word leptin, because I don't know if that's like not a really hot topic yet. I think it probably will be. So what is leptin resistance, and why do women encounter this more at certain times of life?
It's just the satiety hormone. Yeah. It lets you know that you are full and that you're satisfied. And it also, it goes through your body kind of like, and lets your body know how much energy reserves you have.
Yeah. And leptin and ghrelin, they're kind of like 2 opposing hormones. They're both necessary, but leptin is like, hey, I know how to feel satisfied. And ghrelin is like, I'm hungry. And so what can cause your leptin to go too low or too high? And they both have the similar side effects, like when you don't have enough leptin, and that is caused by not enough carbs, once again, not enough calories.
Yeah, over exercising.
Yes. But then, then what do you experience? Well, you experience a slowdown of metabolism. You experience an uptick of cortisol, which is your stress hormone. Well, you can also have too high leptin.
And that's with your excessive Western carbs too.
Standard American diet. Your leptin can get so high because you're eating sugar and things like that it's like chronically high. So it's so high you don't even feel it anymore. So in the end, it's like too low. You're resistant to it. You're like, leptin, what's that?
It screamed so loud for so long that its voice got lost.
Yeah. And so we women experience these leptin issues even more than men because we are very susceptible to when we don't get enough energy through food.
And the crime is, though, I don't want to get leptin resistance. So, I don't want to have too many carbohydrates. But that is like they swing the pendulum to just as much of a dangerous position where tanked leptin is your body wants to hold on to every calorie you put in because it's like, I'm in survival, and it turns off fertility. It turns off extracurricular activities of the body and says, I'm only trying to survive. That's why fertility goes down when women start to, get too low in calories and things like that.
I think that's going to be fascinating and very new for many people. The idea of appetite and satiety. I actually talk about that a lot with my picky eating families, because sometimes picky eating can be caused by just over snacking, never giving that leptin and ghrelin a time to like balance out and build an appetite.
So true. Lack of protein too is another one. And then, you asked, what are some mistakes women do? And I think that there is more, I think, volume in the space out there now about the need for protein. And some people are saying, hey, women need protein. And we do, and sometimes it's done a little wrong. Like, hey, you need protein. So everyone's protein loaded up, but with muscle loss, they can't literally absorb it all. However, a lack of protein. And so many
can I just explain what you were saying there for a second? Because a lot of people that, there is a group of women that are just sedentary. Maybe they have an office job or they're just sitting for much of the day and they hear the importance of protein, but they have small cupboards for protein because protein needs to be stored in your muscle tissue. If your muscle tissue is small, it just has not much of a mouth to open up, then you cannot take in all of that sudden, like, oh, I'm going to go on a protein kick. You can't take it in. And so you'll end up storing it as sugar.
Yeah. So in our Trim Healthy Wisdom book, we talk about how do you get more protein and how do you use it? How do you burn it? So that's the big thing.
And in the end, the goal is, you can like get through a whole steak and store it in your muscle. But there is a journey to that and there is wisdom on the way to that.
But back to that, another reason for low leptin is insufficient protein. The average amount of protein a woman in the US eats is less than 50 grams per day.
And I want to say,
what do we need? What does a woman need?
Yeah, maybe
she needs about between 100 to 150. So most women are under fueling their
And I
protein.
want to say too, maybe that 50 grams she gets in the day is mostly in the evening because it's better for absorption to have your protein every few hours apart. Like you have protein in the morning, especially in the morning, because you're breaking that fast and you're telling your body that's in this catabolic state, hey, don't worry, this is fine. I'm giving you your protein. So your body stops eating its muscle, breaking down its muscle for amino acids. We always need a constant supply of amino acids. If we're not bringing it in, we will be breaking down our own muscle tissue to use it. So oftentimes women will just get busy with their routine and with their family, and they'll just snack around and mostly carby, stupid stuff in the day. And then at night they'll think, oh, I'm having my chicken breast or I'm having my steak. And they just have all their protein in one meal. And the body can only really utilize about 25 grams of protein at a time.
Especially when there's low muscle. When you gain back your muscle, it can use more.
But you have a chance every few hours to stimulate muscle synthesis and start your muscles turning over and getting bigger. So you're missing all of that opportunity if you just do it in one time of the day.
That right there is a golden tip. Like, don't stop listening, everyone, but that's a writer downer for sure. I have to say, the last time I was out with my church mom friends, as soon as I sat down, the conversation was all about protein, but protein drinks, protein bars, protein powders, and just the inundation of information. And my mom friends were like, but I can't figure out where the wholesome protein is. Yeah. So what do you recommend in Trim Healthy Wisdom?
Well, I feel like there is time for both, and it just depends upon your life and where you are.
And your budget.
Yeah, and your budget. I'm always a big believer in whole food protein first, but there are times where, you're out and about and it's been 3 hours since you've had protein and you're hungry, and all you see, is maybe like an apple at a gas station that's real food. It's okay to have a bar in your purse, a protein bar that doesn't have any crazy ingredients in it, just to get you to the place where you can get home to some wholesome protein. Don't miss an opportunity for protein.
Yeah. And we're not big into really high processed proteins. We're not like, you go to the gas station and you look at the bars and it's like soy protein, this and that. And there's a bunch of artificial sweeteners or sugar. That's not what we're talking about. But there's some great basic proteins like whey protein out,
and that's a science hack, because after you lift, and we do encourage women to start lifting from 30 and beyond to keep their cupboards, their muscle tissue cupboards large so that they can eat, enjoy food, and burn.
When you say fuel.
lifting weight. Yeah, lifting heavy weight, not just Barbie pink dumbbells, but doing it safely and doing it over time. Yeah, but whey protein is super important in that window after exercise, or essential amino acids. They're wonderful because they're very fast absorbing, and you need that in the window after exercise to really like replenish those muscles that are really desperate and they've torn and they're rebuilding, they're synthesizing.
Let's definitely talk about that. You mentioned lifting weights, lifting heavy weights. So you're kind of heading down a pathway that I want to follow with you. I think most people, women and men, know they should exercise, should in air quotes. That can be really tough to implement, especially the busier seasons of life. We see that should and we go, I can't. So how do you two differentiate between movement and exercise? And what are some hot tips to incorporate exercise into a busy day and the right kind?
Well, I think it so depends upon who you are, right? So we are two sisters, and I think why our approach to eating and healthy lifestyle has just kind of gel with so many people is we're different. And some people are like, oh, I'm like Serene, I'm that get it person, and are really like crunchy. And then there's me, I call myself a drive-through Sue. And literally, I don't love exercise. I love the results, but I'm not the person who wants to like be an influencer, on and just like lifting weights, perfect form and all of that. So I think that, but even those people that are like me have to make a really mental decision that over the age of 30, we are losing muscle mass. And the only way to get that back is not just doing what you love for exercise, doing a Zumba class, that's all great, going jogging, whatever you want to do, fantastic. It's all useless. And also, when it comes to returning your muscle mass.
I want to say something about jogging. If you love it, I don't want to destroy what you love. If you love it, maybe you can do it. But if you've only got so much time in your life, jogging takes time. Okay, if you want to do sprint intervals, that's great. It takes less time, okay? And that doesn't deplete your muscle tissue. But steady state aerobics depletes your muscle tissue and it takes time. I'd rather people get in the gym, give me 10 minutes or 20 minutes lifting heavy. It's done, it's over, and they actually are changing their bodies. And so, yes, do what you love, but if it's taking the time from a commitment to do what is really going to sustain you, sustain your metabolism and keep your youth around, then I'm like, maybe shove it to the corner and just.
Yeah, so you know what? I started when I realized, okay, Pearl, your cupboards, what Serene talked about, your muscle mass, and neither of us look like bodybuilders, right? But we have regained our muscle mass, has really, really lessened. Well, then I realized I need to do something. And I looked at the science. And in our book, the science is there. I realized what brings it back? Lifting heavy things. Do you know I started with just 10 minutes 3 times a week? Now I'm doing 30 minutes 3 times a week. That's it. And I have regained my muscle to a point that I've never had this much lean muscle mass in my life. My metabolism is burning. I don't have to do all this long cardio stuff. It's so simple. I've finally kind of come to love it. I'm that drive-through Sue person that hated exercise that you couldn't rip lifting heavy weights out of my cold dead hands.
And see, so we're so different and we love to celebrate the uniqueness because I love the clang of the metal. Like I love it. And so I like to exercise in the gym for about an hour, 4 times a week, but it's not a steady hour of misery where I just want to be like a dying cockroach at the end. I take my 3 minutes between my sets and I'm sipping my protein drink and I've got my worship music on and my aromatherapy. It's spa moment. Like it's self-care for me. It's like I am getting filled up. And when I walk out of that gym, I can tackle the world and I'm a beautiful mother. Instead of being like, because it's relieved stress from me. So we're all different. I love exercise. It's a stress reliever, but yeah.
How heavy are these weights? And do the reps matter or is the doing the hardest stuff?
Well, they do. And I think that's bingo. You said, do the reps matter? I feel like don't worry about the weight because we're all different. We're all starting at different places. So it's reps. It's how you can safely, be in tune to your body. You got to push through exertion and push through, this is tough. I've got to get out of the hole in the squat. Yes, but don't push through structural pain, bone pain, ligament pain, where you feel like I'm actually injuring. Don't ever push through pain like that. So be aware of your body. And I think starting is great. 15 to 20 reps starting.
Can I just start a bit more simply? Because you're the exercise nut. And I feel like
I'm just saying, what I'm saying is what's heavy where you can't do more than 15 to 20 reps at the beginning.
Yes.
That's good. Because I feel like if they start to, I can only do this 10 times, they're starting a little too heavy for a beginner is what I'm saying.
I started with such wasting of muscle mass because I was like almost 3 years post-menopause that, like for instance, we're all so different. And some people like we're tall and lanky. So, and I am an ectomorph. I don't know if you know the 3 different, types like ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorph, and we're all different frames. And ectomorph is the smallest bones and the least muscle. And so, I wasn't like Serene, which is more a sporty physique. In my upper body, I could only really start with 8-pound weights.
Okay. And my point is, it doesn't matter about the pounds.
I know, but I'm just speaking to ladies out there. If you need to start with 5 or 8 upper body and maybe 15 and 20 lower body, that's fantastic. Now I'm at least doubling that, but that took 2 years. So it's so unique
We're
for
sisters,
each person.
We're going to fight. What I mean by this is you take that 5 pounds and you can do it 30 to 35 times.
You're right.
It's too light. Mm-hmm. So do what you can do about 15 to 20 to start. Then as you get along and your form is great, you're watching somebody on the internet, so you're doing it in good form, you can go down to the hypertrophy realm, which is when you're actually building muscle tissue, keeping it from, let's stay safe, above 8
to 12.
And below 15.
Yeah.
8 to 12 is good.
Hey, but shameless plug. I mean, we have a membership site, Trim Healthy membership, that we have all our workout videos
we have
there. But
10-minute workouts. We have 25 push. Yeah. We have a 20-minute one for beginners, and we have a 45 strong for psychopaths.
But they're free on YouTube. You don't have to buy a membership, but I'm just saying they're out there if you want to follow someone.
There are also other people on the internet.
Yeah.
There are other people on the internet. What? But you are all about the science. And that I do love that. I'm an English major, but I've always been a science geek. So feed us some science nuggets about muscles and bones that we didn't know.
Well, I want to say then, going back to where we were and extending to that new question, we like to be sciencey about lifting. We're not going to get in the gym and just think, oh, okay, I'm going to build big guns, big lats, and look like a man, even though it's very, very, very hard to look like a man unless you've got a certain kind of gene, you know, and a lot of women out there, they do end up taking the, man steroids. What do you call them again?
Testosterone?
No. It's the
steroids.
No, it's a name, but I forgot it. But anyway, so it's very, very difficult. But we think, let's be smart. Let's build the biggest burning muscle, the one that you build that bank of tissue and it revs your metabolism. The biggest muscle on our body is our glute muscle. There's 3 muscles in the glutes.
Your bum.
Yeah, the medius, the minimus, and the gluteus maximus. But I'm telling you what, build that, because that's also feminine shape too. We're not trying to build big gladiator thighs. Most women are not trying. I mean, some women are going for that, but most women are not trying to like mass out their legs. But, you know, keeping a bum nice and high and tight, ain't nothing wrong with that. But it's also revving our metabolism. It's doing 2 things. It's for aesthetics, but mainly it's for metabolism. So, and then when we get in the gym, we do lifting upper body. We think, okay, where's the areas we need to lift? Okay, perky pecs, we'll do that. So we do bench presses and things like that. We'll do little shoulders, but we're not going in there to get like massive guns. So you can really use lifting to do physique shaping, and that's fun.
But you asked, you know, what are some things you might not know? And Serene said, build your glutes. Well, I'll tell you something. And we present this research in our book. A built glute. So when you lose your bummy muscle, you lose your brain power. When you actually build that glute, you protect your brain. And studies have shown that as glutes and lower body mass weaken, so does brain decline. A fascinating study occurred where they tracked some people with the very earliest onset of brain decline. And so they had some people just doing basic exercises, stretching, walking, things like that. They had some people doing brain exercises where you do patterns and get faster and faster, and you think that would be very effective. Then they had some people build their lower body.
Their glutes.
Yeah. Well, it was fascinating. Do you know the only people that showed cognitive improvement were the people that built their lower body? It's fascinating.
And as we get older, what declines? I mean,
our bummies flatten.
Even be careful during pregnancy, because that time it can be catabolized by pregnancy, the muscle tissue on the bum. And also
that's why protein is so important during pregnancy.
Yeah, super, super important. Yeah.
I'll tell you another thing that we don't know about muscle. Muscle feeds our bone. So as your muscles decline, your bone mineral density lowers. And, you know, what's a woman's biggest risk as we get older? Frailty from hip breaks and things like that. And so we have to have muscle to speak to our bone. What happens as we age? You know, we get our faces kind of like collapse, right?
Reabsorb kind of thing.
And it's not just the skin. Everyone thinks, oh, my skin is falling. What's happening? Your whole bone structure in your face is declining. The skin has nowhere to go. So, you know, when we lift, when we actually tell our bodies, you actually have something for building bone mineral density. You actually have to, because you're lifting heavy things. Well, it actually goes into all areas of your body. Bone mineral density, even in your face.
It's incredible. And this is where the science-backed approach works so well, is that, you know, you're talking about how we exercise and using science, and that feeds how we eat, which helps our whole body health. Like, it's very synergistic and very calculated and very wise, for sure.
And when you exercise this way, I feel like your crazy head goes away a little bit and you start craving the things that your body needs to replenish after a lifting workout. You start craving that protein. You start craving those healthy carbohydrates, and your body actually now is going to burn through it because you're building that tissue that's going to burn through it, that muscle tissue. And I feel like that works hand in hand. Sometimes people try and change their eating brain space without doing the other side of things. And so they're just kind of like working on one area, but it's a 2-pronged approach that works with fixing the brain, about the noisy brain with food. You know, you got to like fix the body so it starts craving the right things.
But, you know, I can imagine someone sitting maybe you've probably got a lot of nerdy, geeky people listening that love the science, but sometimes it can feel very overwhelming to say, hold on, what are you talking about? Right now, I don't even feel like I could start there. I'm out of shape. I haven't done exercise in many years. Or you tell me I got to get in the gym and start lifting. Just any movement, just walking is a great place to start.
And if walking is the only place you can start now, albeit walking takes time.
Yeah.
So I can get a lot more done
Yeah.
in the time that I could do a nice relaxing walk. I'm all about walking, by the way, and I love to listen to messages or podcasts or things. It's all healthy and wonderful, but it's just not shaping your body or building muscle mass. But you can wear a weighted vest, and that's a great place to start. If you're like, I love walking, just leave me alone, let me walk, at least wear a weighted vest. Or if you have a child in an ergo, fantastic. If you have a grandchild in an ergo, if you don't have that, use the weighted vest. But that is putting signaling to your bone to start building. Another thing, let's get practical. When I had babies, how many children do I have?
She's a lot of children. She birthed 9 and adopted quite a few.
Yeah. So it keeps changing. You see, they're marrying and moving out of the house. But, when all my children were around me and I had the babies, it was important for me to get exercise in. And so I used to put my little one in her little stroller, strapped in with the little dangly toys and a sippy cup and everything. And she just knew that was her time and she was safe that way. And I knew she wasn't going to get run over or run away or get lost or anything. So she was in there and she just ended up being trained that she just watches mommy work out. And that's the case, and then you get to children that are older and can babysit. But even like doing terrible things like I do and sticking my babies in front of Superbook. They're not babies, but like a little Christian show. Sometimes I'm like, it's better for me, my household will be healthier if I get in the gym than to do absolutely no screens at all.
Well, Serena's saying, hey, put your own oxygen mask on before you tend to the needs of your family. Because that reel you did the other day, it went out on our Instagram, but it was like, most parents would say they would die for their children, but would you live longer for them? And muscle is your organ of longevity. That's what scientists have discovered.
Yeah, they call it the longevity organ because muscle is an organ. Organs secrete things that are messages to the body, and muscle secretes myokines. That's a message to your body. It speaks to your immune system. It speaks to the other organs in your body. It's not just, I have a little bicep here. No, it's so much more. It's quintessential to health and longevity.
It's amazing. I was just complaining to another mom friend the other day that now that I don't have babies, I don't have carryable children anymore, that I'm losing my mommy muscle.
Yes.
But there are probably a number of reasons for that, as I have just learned, and I'm so fascinated. Girls, the original Trim Healthy Mama system is really a way of eating that combines certain foods and certain meals. Does someone need to be familiar with the Trim Healthy Mama system before grabbing the new wisdom book?
Well, not really, because if you want to grab the wisdom book, it's all in there. We do a recap of the plan, the original plan, and then we tell you how to tweak it as you go into different hormonal seasons. So you don't have to. No, not at all. If you want to get in there to the geeky and latest science and learn how to just regain your metabolism back so you can burn food again and feel like you have a metabolism, that's what we're all about.
And I love the word you use, seasons, too, and just acknowledging that we do change and we move, our hormones change and our metabolism changes and our needs change. And that's really what you're serving, is how we can give our bodies what they need.
There are seasons and they have to be treated differently. The amazing thing about this hope that we're bringing to women and this education and just like the facts of the science behind it is, there may be some seasons in perimenopause and menopause where you have to do a few things differently, but you can rev your metabolism to the point where you take yourself back 2 decades and you can eat back like you were in your 20s. I mean, Pearl, you're eating now like you were in your 20s, but there for a while, you were like, oh my goodness. And you had to tweak
I had to
things and
delay my
change.
window of not eating. I had to push my breakfast out further. I had to stop eating earlier in the evening. I don't have to do that anymore. I have cupboards in my body. They take in food. They burn it. And so it's so freeing. It's so peaceful and it's doable, but it's not instant stuff. It's not a microwave method. It takes time, but it's a wonderful journey.
And the book is a wonderful companion on the journey. I am literally, metaphorically, both eating it right up. And I love the way you talk, the microwave method and the, drive-through Sue, and just it's so fun and it's very accessible, but also very geeky, which I do think my audience will like as well.
There are bullet points, so if it's all too much, we understand not everyone wants to sit there with their underlining pen and go through every page. Every chapter has bullets if you just want to read the summary.
And if you're not a reader, we have a audio version, which is not traditional audio version. We read the script, then we go off script and chat about the book. So.
That must be so fun.
It's pretty wild.
Oh, well, I would love you to talk to women and sort of, what I want to know is like, how do I know, right? How do I know when my body is saying this way that you've been eating or moving is not working? So what are sort of some signs where the body says you need to make a change?
I would say you're noticing a body composition change where you're kind of like, maybe you're the same weight on the scale, but your jeans are feeling tighter around the button area, you know, the zip and the button, they're like tighter around the middle, but maybe it's starting to be looser around your rear.
Yeah.
So sometimes it can just be body composition change even before you see changes on the scale.
Yeah. And it just, you feel like you're storing food rather than burning it like you used to. But, you know, honestly, you don't necessarily have to feel these changes. They are going on. So as Serene said, it's a fact after 30, you start losing muscle mass every year, but something else happens. It's not just the losing muscle mass. What happens is these little micro droplets of fat that shouldn't be in your muscle come and striate your muscle. And this is the very start of insulin resistance, where muscle is no longer muscle. It's a combination of fat and muscle.
Like the steak that you really want to eat at a really high-end restaurant. It's got all that yummy marbling of fat through it.
That's very insulin-resistant steak. Yeah.
And that's what happens to our muscle, but it's not clean muscle that likes to store when it's in that state.
So that happens to all of us. It gets into our organs too. Even if we're a good number on the scale, fat starts to creep in. So what do we do about it? Well, of course, you know, these things like this way of moving we've been talking about deals with it. Eating enough carbs deal with it, but also having enough plants in your life. And we talk about that in the book. Guess why?
We want grass-fed steak muscles.
A high intake of plants, and we share some studies about this, literally go into these muscles and flush out these little micro droplets of fat. So we talk about not only being protein strong in the book, but also being plant strong. The two have to go together.
So we call each other meat eating vegans. So we love our greens. We love our greens, but we love our meat too.
Yeah. So it's really the best of both worlds. And it's the most impactful way to not only clean out your muscles, but to build them. And both are needed. So some people, they go really, I'm all about protein.
Right.
They don't eat enough plants. And then this imbalance happens and they just start getting bulky.
So insulin resistance is the first thing. And it happens happens way before we are, you know, like diagnosed. You have insulin resistance. No, it's the slippery slope to insulin resistance. We were talking the other day how people say, oh, I'm postmenopausal now, or I'm in menopause now. Well, how did you get there? There was a journey to get there. There was so many years of decline of hormones before all of a sudden you're skipping for 12 months and now you're officially called postmenopausal. So before you're officially called insulin resistant, you're having these years where you are becoming that way. And we're saying in that time, that's when you get smart and you get wise. And we have a 3-pronged approach to prevent insulin resistance and to heal insulin resistance. And that is to build muscle, build muscle through a resistance exercise like we talked about, to clean the muscle tissue out through Plant Strong. And we talked about that. And then to fuel it
with
protein every 3 to 4 hours a day. So at least 4 protein servings a day.
Well, I'm so glad that you answered my question that popped into my head, because when you talked about little fatty deposits going in your muscles, like I almost wanted to start massaging my arms out. Like that was such that was just a gross visual for me. So yay, plants are the little scrub brushes that can sweep out our cupboards, so to speak. So thank you for sharing that. It's good to know there's an answer. Y'all, you need to get this book, Trim Healthy Wisdom. It's big, but the bullets are super helpful, and I'm going to keep working my way through it. This was such a treat to talk to both of you, Pearl and Serene, and I love to leave parents with a message of hope. So if you could encourage mamas in one way, what do you want to leave them with?
I would personally like to say, never feel like you are too stuck, too far gone in your health, too much into a habit, or too failed at diets before, that there is an easy way that's sustainable. It's not fast, but it's easy, and in time is going to change your life and rock your world. And hope is brighter than it's ever been before.
Yeah, and I remember feeling hopeless. Especially when my hormones were in decline, and I felt like a bit of a fraud almost, like my body was almost betraying me. Yet I'm sitting here today filled with just such vitality that I never thought I'd regain. And that is there for those who seek it. The scripture says, seek and you will find. And God never leaves us without an answer. And there's an answer out there, and it doesn't have to be brutal. It doesn't have to be stripping your body of things you need, because as women, we're the life givers, and whether we ever have children or not, it doesn't matter. We were designed to keep the species going, so we need food.
Yeah.
And we're not going to take away food from people. We're going to provide it.
And we don't do well as females. We don't do well with Spartan, tough, cortisol producing, like sprint diets and challenges and things like that. We do better with just the steady, things that just bring changes with a long-term approach. And that's what the wisdom approach is all about. Just daily micro habits that you keep at it. And you turn around one day and think, oh my goodness, I've never felt so great in years.
Beautiful and fantastic and definitely encouraging. Thank you, Pearl and Serene. I appreciate your presence here today.
Thank you
Katie.
so much, Katie. We appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Healthy Parenting Handbook podcast. I hope your brain feels fed and your heart feels full, and that you feel connected, knowing that there are other parents on this journey with you. We're just trying to raise healthy, independent adults. And the next time you think, man, there is no handbook for this job, now there is the Healthy Parenting Handbook. Look up the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please leave a review, my friends, as that helps other parents who need this information to find us. And of course, subscribe. That's a huge help. You can also look for our shorts as a reel on Instagram at Katie Kimball Kids Cook, or subscribe to the Healthy Parenting Handbook Shorts channel on YouTube. You'll get those bite-sized portions of healthy parenting advice.